Hello, everyone. My name is Anne Joutsenwerda. I'm a, co uh, courses chair at UXPA International this year. I'm here with Jen Romano, who is our co-chair, conference co-chair, and Lauren Schaefer, who is presenting a course at the conference. So let's start by hearing about your career path, Lauren. How did you end up into UX?
That's a great question. I started, let's see, I was right after what was it called? The dot-com boom. And I wanted to be a developer. And so I got my degree and got my first job actually as a developer, but I always loved art. And so I moved into an art landscape. And I always thought, God, I wish there was some way to combine these two loves of mine, art and um, computers and science, and I've always also been very fascinated by psychology. And I had a fantastic manager at one of the companies I worked at back in 2005, and she asked, "Have you ever heard of this group called Nielsen Norman Group? They're putting on a conference in Seattle, and I think you should go. I think you might really dig it." And then I just dove in head first after that. I got my master's degree, and I've been working in it for the last 20 years.
Okay. Okay. And what's up with you these days? What are you doing?
I am the director of user experience at Seesaw. It's a learning company for students in the elementary space. We
Mm,
primarily have teachers and students as our users, but also school administrators. And we're international. And we've actually just acquired a company called Little Thinking Minds in Amman, Jordan, which is super exciting. So spending lots of time with my team and building out Seesaw.
awesome. So you told about a little bit about your clients and kind of, but tell what kind of project do you do with your customers and with your clients?
Yeah, so as far as types of projects, Seesaw being an elementary education platform, we do design and research for students and for teachers. And one of the unique things about our platform is a lot of our users can't read. So
Hmm.
students who are 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, kindergartners, preschoolers sometimes have to be able to use the platform to draw and respond and accept and submit
Mm,
assignments. And they sometimes are just learning based on iconography,
mm,
teacher modeling, and teacher direction. So it's very interesting work to be able to do. And a large part of our work is also on the teachers themselves. How do we help them teach with a fidelity that's going to be meaningful to the students? So
mm,
I have a team of 6 designers and researchers, and we spend
mm,
our time solving those problems.
mm. It sounds that like you are dealing with children, so it kind of sounds that ethics is
Mhm.
plays a big role in your work. How
Yes.
does it impact on how do you do research and design?
Yes, it's very well. I think the biggest part with children is we must have their parents there.
Mm,
And we don't have the same type of quantitative data that we
mm,
have with our teachers. We don't
mm,
monitor their web usage, their online usage. We don't monitor their activities in that way. So
mm,
we really have to rely on our more qualitative observational
mm,
studies
mm,
and research. Um, it's a lot of fun. Children, I think, are such great feedback givers and
mm,
very honest in their
mm,
feedback. And sometimes it can be easier, I think, with
mm.
kids to get to the meat of how they feel, as
Yeah.
opposed to teachers, which is where I think we see more of that bias coming in, which is what my workshop is getting
Mm,
into. Because as we grow and age and use our brains differently,
mm,
we've created all these pattern engines and
mm,
recognition engines that cause us to respond in ways that may not always be entirely accurate to our behavior.
interesting. I know that kind of the children's culture is very linked to the language and the local culture. So it's not like children are not necessarily aware of the like a big media companies that are pushing content for adults and teenagers. What are the things that you have learned, like about those differences?
That's interesting. That doesn't apply as much to our product since we're in the
Mm,
education space,
mm,
um, and we're really being purchased through the K-6 um,
mm,
landscape, but I mean, there's definitely a lot there. I think kind of tangentially related when you think about like YouTube and YouTube Kids, and you
mm,
think
mm,
about how to keep that a safe space. We have
mm,
a lot of guards and restrictions in place where we are. For example, we don't even have YouTube at Seesaw, which is one of
mm,
our top requests. The teachers
mhm,
are constantly going, "Can I please put some YouTube videos in?" But
mhm,
it's a type of thing we take very, very seriously. We don't have image options. A lot of tools have image
mhm,
options. I want to add a horse. Let me search and add a horse. But there's a lot of safety involved in all the various types of things that could come
mm,
up, various types of things
mm,
that could be searched. So we do take it very, very seriously. It is something we're constantly looking into. So if anybody watches this who's in this
mm,
space, there's a chance it may be coming in
mm.
the near future, but it is taken with high regard.
Okay. So you don't kind of allow the YouTube. What kind of content? Where does the content come from? Uh,
Yeah, it's a whole curriculum team internally that creates it. So we have
mm,
our own content. We also have teacher-generated content,
mm,
and it
mm,
covers everything from
mm,
learning how to decode
mm,
vowels and
mm,
different parts of language so that
mm,
you can become a speaker to responding to things with different multimodal tools. The teacher wants to
mm,
ask you to do a report on an animal. Maybe you can't type or write what you want to say yet, but you can voice it. You can record
mm,
a video, you can
mm,
draw it. And so that
mm,
also speaks to the platforms. One of the things I love about the platform is
mm,
accessibility. People, children from all different aspects, whether or not they
mm,
have picked up English or
mm,
their native language or a second
mm,
language, still have the opportunity to participate and respond. And
mm,
especially sometimes children who have a harder time responding can usually find something through our
mm,
platform that resonates with them,
mm.
and the teacher can get something out of them that they normally can't get.
So very interesting. This is a very fascinating domain that you're working
I
on.
love it. I love it. It's
Yeah.
a mission-driven organization too, which is fantastic.
Mm. Awesome.
I had a quick follow-up question. I think you mentioned the parents have to be there, like when you're
Mm-hmm.
conducting research with the kids. Do you find that children, and maybe you don't know if you haven't worked just with children by themselves in a research context, like do you find that having the parents there might skew the children's feedback at all?
It's a good question. I don't think it does. I would love to do more research on that, but from what I've seen with the age groups that we're working with, it actually helps them respond. They
Mm-hmm.
feel more obligated to respond instead of getting distracted, getting up, walking away, doing something
Mm-hmm.
else. It's like, okay, my mommy's watching. I'm going to sit and focus and show that I can focus. And
Mm-hmm.
then we get more of their full attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about very young ages here. So I think
At
once we
what
get to
ages?
as young as 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so once we get into some of the older kids, for example, we've done some stuff with game testing to see if there was any opportunity to move forward
Mm-hmm.
there. And some of those older kids were able to be more independent. And
Yeah.
so I would be curious how much they would be affected, but I haven't seen any indication at this point that it's
Mm-hmm.
a super inhibitor to the types of work that we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious too. Like I know research has shown and actually in some of my experience with like Facebook privacy, when it's sensitive topics,
Yeah.
or like I think it was at Instagram. It's like we had some research and when the parents were present, the kids were like reluctant to even scroll. It's like they didn't want their parents to see what was even on their screen. So
Oh, for
maybe it also
sure.
depends on the topic, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think
Age of the
we
topic.
would get into that maybe if we were actually evaluating them on their knowledge, which is what the tool does. Like if you are in the classroom, this tool is allowing you to respond to material and show whether or not you understand it. But
Mm-hmm.
in the testing, we're more focused on the tooling itself.
Mm-hmm.
With students, can you use this? Can you move back and forward? Can you draw an animal for me? Are you able
Mm-hmm.
to use the tools and
Mm-hmm.
pick the right color? So I think there's less pressure to your point, Jen, with sensitivity to like get the right answer,
Mm-hmm.
because it's much more free form and expressive.
Mm, mm. Do you think that there's a kind of cultural differences on how children are reacting and behaving in front of their parents in research situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. We haven't had the opportunity to do as much cultural research on that.
Mm,
It would be interesting to look into with this acquisition with Little Thinking Minds. I am
Yeah.
curious to look
Yeah.
into that more.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that you will be kind of getting these conversations in UXPA where there are
Yeah.
people from different cultures, different countries. I come from myself originally from Finland, and I see a huge difference on uh, behavior of the children in US compared to Finland. Uh, the cultural kind of topics,
Mhm.
what is appropriate and what is appropriate or inappropriate. Like in Finland, nudity is fine,
Mm.
but the guns are not. You are not allowed in a kindergarten if they have the day when you can bring your own toys. No weapons are allowed, not
Yes.
on any sort. Here, it seems to be like other way around. Nudity is bad, but the guns are okay.
And that's a great point because it's something that we're currently getting into
Mm,
with this acquisition and with our expansion into different
mm,
regions. The acquisition being in the MENA region, some of our content needs to be
mm,
adjusted based on the
mm,
visuals and imagery that is in it. Thinking about going into the UK, for example,
mm, mm.
we can't even refer to them as students. Now they're pupils,
Yeah.
right? And we talk about, okay, you're in kindergarten, that doesn't work anymore in the UK. And
Mm,
so we have different leveling of grades,
mm,
for example, and
yeah.
how that's referred to. So it's partly in the language, it's partly in the imagery. It's
Mm,
definitely something that we are currently exploring and learning as we
yeah.
go.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of what Jen was saying about uh, the how would you advise, what would you say to people who are exploring the career in UX, whether they are recent graduates or somebody who is switching career and interested in UX? What
Mm.
advice would you give?
Oh, that's super interesting, I think, too, because my advice today is not probably the same advice I would have given 5 years ago. With
Okay.
COVID and with the change of the landscape and technology and I think
Mm,
it's a very different environment than it was 5 years ago.
mm,
I think also with economics and layoffs, um,
mm,
that also makes a big difference. I think it's a great field. I personally love it. I've dedicated my whole career to it. I am a big, big
mm,
fan. I do think that it takes effort to learn, and I think there's a misconception
mm,
sometimes because
mm,
anyone can draw, right? Anyone can
mm,
communicate visually.
mm,
But to be able to do interaction design or to be able to
mm,
do user experience research takes a certain aspect of understanding the more minutia details
mm,
and the
mm,
scientific underpinning behind it.
mhm.
And it can be easy to assume I'm watching you ask questions, so I can ask questions, and that's just fine, and
Yeah.
not realize that
Mm,
those questions could be very loaded or
mm,
one-sided or full of bias.
mm,
And those designs might look really pretty, but
mm,
when they're built, they could be practically impossible to use and
mm,
full of errors.
mm,
So it's a really good field to go into, but I think it's also important to take the time to really appropriately prepare yourself, whether
mm,
that's through a formal training like the university or a boot camp or reading,
mm,
whatever your learning mechanism is. It's a deep
mhm.
field and there are a lot of verticals within it.
Okay. Okay. And let's talk about the UXPA International. The conference will be on June 16 to 19 in Amsterdam. And you are teaching a course on mind games, how bias affects research, and what to do about it. How
Mhm.
did you come up with this topic? What is the history of it?
There's a long history, actually. I think the first talk I was a part of for this was in the early 2010s. And
Mm-hmm,
this is where I worked at the time at Ultimate Software. And we were helping give a talk to other people in the business who wanted to talk to customers to
mm-hmm,
inform the best ways not to lead,
okay.
how to approach those conversations. And it was a really well-received internal workshop. And so I turned it into an external workshop with my group. At the time, I ran the South Florida User Experience Meetup,
Mm-hmm,
and that went really, really fantastically as well.
mm-hmm,
The hardest part for me at that point, it was a 4 hour workshop that didn't even feel like it covered it.
mm-hmm,
But so many people wanted to come but couldn't dedicate 4 hours.
mm-hmm,
So I said, okay, let me try to shove it all into a talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I've given that talk quite a few times now, and I gave it at UXPA, and now I'm going the other direction. When I gave the talk last time, I had a lot of people say, I wish we had more time. I wish it could
Mm-hmm.
be wider and more example filled and activities. So I'm going back to the roots,
Mm-hmm.
working on a workshop again, and the opportunity for people to write down things that they would ask and review it and think about how
Mm-hmm.
these things work in the brain and how they might edit that with that kind of front and center.
That's really kind of interesting. Yeah, I think bias definitely, it's something that we are not always aware of
Sure.
and very easily can impact the work we are doing, not only as researchers, but also like designers, or even like when we are providing guidance to the leadership on
Mhm.
which direction the company should go. So it can have a lot of impact.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah.
it can be used to our detriment and to our advantage.
Mm,
And it's always there. You know,
mm,
you can't get rid of it. But knowing it and knowing how to work with it and knowing how to debias your work
mm, mm,
in reliable ways can help you avoid
mm,
going down maybe the wrong path or pushing
mm,
recommendations that maybe you didn't even realize weren't gathered in the best way.
mm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think it's so important, and I think all UX researchers should be trained on it, right? It's like
Mm,
we unknowingly bring bias to our work. I mean, we do no matter what, the mere presence of a person, right? And
Yeah.
whether it's your smile or lack thereof, or the color of your hair, or the color of your skin, or how tall you are, or what you're wearing, like all of
Mhm.
this has the potential to bring some
mm,
bias to the
mm,
interview, to the
mm,
research. And I
mm,
think their awareness of it is like number one. We all should be aware.
mm,
And then number
mm,
two, how to mitigate as much as we,
mm,
we can't change
Yeah,
our appearance and be
mm,
like our participant, but as much as possible, how can we mitigate? I think it's
mm.
exactly.
a topic. Yeah. Thank you for turning it into a course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it is understanding the biases, but also not something else I've seen is people try to memorize every
Mm,
single, like, oh, this is such and such bias, this is such and such bias.
mm,
And there's so much overlap. I mean, it's like a Venn diagram overload
mm,
on the titles and names and backgrounds of these
mm,
things, but at the core, they all come back to how the brain works.
Mhm.
And we talk
mm,
about that in the course and like
mm,
where do these come from in the first place and why are we
mm,
so prone to it? And what is
mm,
it driving these things so that regardless of whether you know every single one or you've memorized all
mm,
the different labels, you can start to have a good hunch as to like, this is probably not a good question, just based
mm.
on how we
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
information.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Or this is not the right way of asking this question,
Exactly.
even if the topic would be necessary to ask. But how do you approach to it? It does
Yes.
matter how you do things, not only what you do.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like to think of it as we are input machines, we are not output machines. And while there are some amazing writers and speakers out there as a whole, we were built to take in through our senses and to
Mm,
use algorithms to take all those inputs and turn them into ways to help us move through life without
mm,
dying,
mm.
basically.
Mhm.
And when other
Yeah.
people ask us how we made that decision,
Mm,
the brain's kind of like, well, I wasn't made for this. I wasn't made for output. I was made for
yeah.
input. And
Yeah.
you create these distorted realities that feel perfectly valid and you have
Mm,
confidence in them without even realizing that
mm,
that may not quite be why how your brain actually solved that
mm.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those cognitive shortcuts.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes also to kind of what did you say, that we are not built to for the output, and I think we often with the Kahneman's thinking fast and slow
Yeah.
gives like a explanation that we often give these kind of fast responses then
Mhm.
that may or may not be the actual the reason why did we do something in a specific
Yeah.
way.
The quicker it is, the easier it is
Mm,
to
mm,
answer, the more
yeah.
likely, unless it's rote memorization, like two plus
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
there may be
Yeah.
something going on there.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Who is this course for? To whom did you kind of design it for?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, the key person is a researcher. I've had 3 different research teams now, and on each team, somebody ultimately will ask a question like, let's interview our customers and ask them when they signed up 5 years ago how they felt about it. Okay, well,
Okay.
probably not a great idea, and there's a number of reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of explaining that over and over the years, that's kind of who I hold in my mind, is maybe someone who hasn't had a chance to have that formal training. Maybe they've been in the field for a while and they've just been going at it with their gut and with their common sense and doing really well, but they could go a level deeper with this understanding. I also think it's good for designers. A lot of designers do research, whether formal or otherwise. And I think it's good for managers to understand the research that their team is doing and the questions that their team is asking, and the product managers, anyone really who talks to customers and gets feedback around their products could probably benefit.
What are you saying that I don't think I think that it can be beyond the customers and users. Like if you think about the designers, how they want to kind of figure out from the stakeholders, what is the actual thing that we should be building? It's also type of like interview, because to be honest, the requirements really are good enough to start the work.
Yep, that's so true. And there are many ways. I think that you can, that's where I said, leverage bias to your benefit. I always made sure I had food at my workshops because there's a bias in my favor for that. But yeah, I think, this is where this could be huge. There's so much to cover. So I do try to scope it into how the brain works, why these biases come about. And then I have a workshop exercise where you'll do some interview questions, do some pairing, talk to other people. Then we'll go through good and bad questions, what makes them good and bad, go back and check our work, maybe update it a little bit. So some exercises in there. You can test yourself, see if you're as good as you think you are. So it should be a fun experience, really kind of targeted towards research questions and practical takeaways for writing research scripts and questions and testing.
I love it.
Yeah. And you have been a little bit talking about what people can expect to learn in a course. But is there something else you want to kind of highlight? What would be the takeaways for people?
From the course?
Yeah.
I would say the takeaways will be understanding how bias affects us, how it comes about in the brain, how to write better questions, and ways to bias in your work.
Okay. And what are you looking forward in a conference and attending it?
Oh, I love going to conferences. I'm a forever learner. My favorite thing about UXPA is it's that intersection of designers and researchers, and it's one of the few conferences where I think you can really get both. And it also, I think, provides a really fantastic balance between academia and industry, which you don't see a lot of places.
Awesome. Have you been in Amsterdam before?
I've not. I'm very excited to ride bicycles. I want a picture riding a bicycle in Amsterdam, the windmill.
It's really surreal because it's so flat. Like, riding a bicycle, you don't have hills. You cannot go up and down, like it's totally flat. It's totally opposite from Seattle. Like
much better for a trip.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So where people can find you on the conference, of course, but if they want to get in touch with you otherwise.
Yeah, LinkedIn is good. I am pretty good about responding to LinkedIn messages, but it's definitely the best place to reach out to me. Yeah, I think that's primarily it. I'm not on a ton of socials, but LinkedIn would be the best place to reach out to me and see more about what I'm doing.
Lauren, real quick, I know we're just wrapping up here, but speaking of what you're doing, can you share with us your new books that you have available?
So these are the Why books. There are 3 of them. And these are not books you read to gain information. These are books you write in to help you process the fact that we are input thinkers and not necessarily exput. X. So we've got the black and the blue Y book are essentially journals that have prompts asking you to think through your decisions and sketch. And then the red book is actually my favorite because it's filled with all these templates that help you think through, when you're kind of grappling with something, you're like, I'm trying to figure this out, or I'm trying to get creative, or I have a mind block, or I want to think through it. It has the 6 thinking hats, it has Scamper, it has fishbone diagram, it has the 5 whys, lots of ways to just kind of help you think through your thinking, which helps de-bias us a bit.
Are those, I've always thought about when we've talked about those in the past, I've always thought about those as for work, but hearing you describe them now, I feel like those are useful for life.
Yes, definitely.
What was your intention when you created these?
My intention was work, but I actually have one myself that I have used because, I have a couple extra laying around, and I use it for all sorts of things, sketching, food recipes, meal planning. Like I have ended up using it for a number of things when I'm just trying to organize my thoughts. I find it incredibly helpful to have a template or a pattern.
Very
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for having a conversation with us, Lauren.
Yeah, I loved it. And it's great to see you both.
You too. Looking forward to seeing you in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
On a bike.
Yeah. Yeah, on a bike. Yeah. 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 Oh.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
We'll see you very soon.
Yep.